Thank you for joining the SMPS Central Florida Marketing Mechanics. We're excited today to have Matt Certo with Findsome Winmore. We want to take this moment to thank our annual sponsors. We appreciate your support. Without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to make these insightful educational programs available. So thank you.
I'd like to go ahead and introduce Matt Certo. Matt serves as CEO and Principal of Findsome Winmore, an Orlando, Florida-based digital marketing agency. Originally called Web Solvers, the company's first client was his alma mater, Rollins College. Matt built the college's first website out of his dorm room in 1995 at the age of 19. Since then, Matt has grown the company into a fully integrated digital marketing agency with experienced professionals, a diverse client base, and an ever-increasing suite of services. Like I said, Matt is the author of a book that we're going to be giving away today. It's titled Formulaic: How Thriving Companies Market from the Core. He is also the author of Found: Connecting with Customers in the Digital Age. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Matt.
Thank you, Danielle. Let me get going and sharing my screen here. And welcome, everybody. Okay, excellent. Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you and talk about a topic that I'm very interested about and enthusiastic about, which is differentiation and how you stand out in the marketplace. And I know that this group, primarily professional service firms, so architects, engineers, planners, you all design and build really cool stuff. And trying to separate yourselves is always a challenge. And so in any industry, you have that challenge of setting yourselves apart. And I want to specifically talk about some of the examples and opportunities that you have, but also learn from other examples that might be relevant. So we'll talk about food, restaurants, we'll talk about grocery stores, just to give you a sense of the topic, and hopefully you leave with some practical tools that you can use to get more clients, because that's what we're all trying to do is grow our businesses, grow our organizations. So I do appreciate the opportunity. Danielle has been very helpful, and also Whitney from Dick's Height. We're big fans of the organization. I think it was probably 12 or 15 years ago it's been since I've spoken at this group at TLC Engineering. I don't know if they're on today, but that was a memorable experience for me. So, and just a word about who I am and the company I represent. I am with an agency called Findsome Winmore, as Danielle shared, and this is our building in Winter Park. We have an 8,000 square foot building. Unfortunately, most of our folks are working from home. I see a few of them are online. So hello, I can see you, and thanks for joining. But we're right on Lakemont, just outside of Baldwin Park. We've been in this building almost 3 years, and it's a really creative space that we have, where we're able to collaborate. Clients come in right now. Actually, we have a nonprofit that's using this space, a big open space for a company retreat. Everybody's socially distanced, but it's good to see actual people in the building. And it's the One Pulse Foundation, excuse me, that's here to plan for the future. I wouldn't be here without the awesome teammates that I get to work with each and every day. So we have about 25 folks that do everything from design to manage social media for clients, to helping with outdoor advertising, television advertising, public relations, a lot of interactive work, website development. I would invite you to go to our website, findsomewinmore.com, just to get a sense of the kind of the work that we do. But I want to talk really about, the concept of marketing that's in the title of your organization, the name of your organization. It's what we're all a part of. And I'm a believer that we're all in marketing in one way or another. And I actually am a student. I've been doing this, a student of the topic. I've been doing this my entire professional career. And not only do I like to do this work for clients, but I like to write about it, speak about it, and learn from other people. And this book, Formulaic: How Thriving Companies Market from the Core, I wrote a few years ago, and I'm really passionate about the concept and the topic. I'll tell you more about why I called it formulaic, why there's an oak tree on the cover, lots to it. But I'm very proud of this work, um, and the element of differentiation is a big part of marketing in general, and how we use it, how we pursue it, and how we talk about it, so that more people, the right people, use the services that we all offer. So, sort of at the outset, I just want to talk about marketing as a topic, because so often when I meet with folks, they use marketing and promotion interchangeably, and it's for good reason. If you think about a bank, you might say that Wells Fargo markets itself by running television ads. Or if you're thinking about Publix, I saw Publix in the background of someone's Zoom background there. Publix markets itself by advertising in the newspaper and putting their coupons in the newspaper. But really, when you think about marketing, it's a much broader topic than just promotion. When we market something, what we're really talking about are the 4 Ps. And it's a term you're probably mostly familiar with when I'm talking to a marketing group, but it's the marketing mix of product, price, and place, in addition to promotion. So I really like to lead with that as we dive down into differentiation, because I really like to get clients thinking about what's underneath the engine, not just how we promote ourselves, not just how we design a logo, but what is underneath the hood, the engine itself. So, and the reason I wrote Formulaic came out of a story with an actual client who came to us. This client was a restaurant, and they were really struggling, and they were struggling. Sales were down, customers weren't satisfied, turnover was very high, and the client came to us and said, we're really struggling, can you help us? And said, yes, we can help you. And they sort of self-diagnosed, as a lot of your clients probably do too, and said, we need a new name, we need a new logo, we need a new color palette, we need a new design of our menu. And we did that. We went through the exercise of coming up with a new logo, coming up with a new name, new ethos for their interior, also a new menu structure, new business cards, all the things, the new signage, all the things that make you look good. And it's a big grand opening. All these things are put into place, and a shiny new wrapper is put around this restaurant. So there's a lot of excitement, and about 6-8 weeks later, I run into the owner and I said, how are things going? That was such an exciting opening. How are things, evolving? And really hung his head and said, things are still down. The sales aren't high, customers aren't returning, turnover is still high, can't keep people. And ultimately, what it really awakened in me is a realization that marketing really isn't just about what's outside, although that can be very important. It's what's inside an organization, its culture, its values, its mission, its commitment to service, or to developing a team atmosphere that makes people feel welcome when they come to a restaurant. Or is the food good? Oh, by the way, is it appealing to that particular audience? So I really went on this journey to sort of deconstruct the inside part of marketing. And ultimately, I thought about modeling lessons to be learned from businesses that really thrive. Okay. And when you think about the word thrive, a business thrives when it's doing well financially. There's a buzz about it. Think about pre-pandemic walking into the Apple store. You can just feel that organization thriving. Or when a new restaurant opens and it's getting rave reviews, the food's fantastic, the atmosphere is great, the interior just makes you feel like you want to be there. That's a thriving business. And thriving businesses, you know them when you see them. You probably have worked for a business that's thriving and a business that's not thriving, or you've been in a business that's thrived at some point, but maybe it goes and it's having a decline. So the point of all of this is, how do we all get to a point where our businesses are truly thriving? And with the book Formulaic, what I tried to do is deconstruct lessons from brands that are very relatable to all of us. And you've probably encountered some of these. There's Publix again. Whether you get your coffee at Starbucks at the top, or you get your coffee at Dunkin' Donuts at the bottom, they're all thriving in different ways, and there are unique lessons to be learned. And so with Formulaic, I've really tried to unpack some of those lessons and to help a reader understand, how do I make these lessons work for my particular organization. So a big mistake that we often see is that when you look at a Starbucks, or you look at a Chobani yogurt, or your favorite restaurant, you think, gosh, they must have that one thing, the silver bullet that makes it all work for them, makes it all come together. And it seems a little trite to say it that way, but often you think they must just have something that makes it work. And what I like to talk about is that the silver bullet is a myth. I think we all know that, but it bears repeating. Here's a friend of mine and very successful restaurateur, John Rivers, who can teach us from the success of his restaurants, whether it's the Coop or Four Rivers, the barbecue restaurant, the concept that he really started with and made him famous. And his quote here really kind of debunks that silver bullet. And, it says he's often asked about the one thing that makes 4R successful. Is it the brisket, the sauce, or perhaps the people or culture? He says, my answer is yes, plus 10 other elements, each equally important, focused in granular detail and with incessant intentionality. So the concept here is that it's not just one thing, it's a variety of things that when you combine them, makes a business thrive. And so that leads into why we arrived at the title of Formulaic, because I think there are a number of different elements, and they go beyond the 9 that I have listed here. But there are a number of different elements that if we explore them and we unpack them and understand how they might work for us, we can create our own formula that when you blend them all together, you end up with a formula for your business that is unique, that is potent, and that helps you ultimately thrive. Okay, so this book is about all these individual elements. So, and they're not all relevant to every organization, but this really gives you a framework for the book itself. Now, we're not going to go through each of these today. The point today is to focus on differentiation. Okay, and you'll see that the 4th from the left, the courage to be different. That's really what we're going to be driving toward ultimately. But I do like to start with this one of an articulated understanding of who you are as an organization. And back to the tree metaphor, I think it's important to think through different elements at the core of your organization. Okay, back to the restaurant. We're not talking about the logo or the signage or what the menu looks like. We're really talking about what's on the inside of that restaurant or that concept. What are the values of that organization? What's the why behind why they do what they do? Okay. What's the vision of the future that organization brings? What difference do you make to your customers, to the people that work for you, to your community? And what is your mission? What is the mission that you're on? Okay, ultimately as an organization. So I don't know in the organizations that you work for or that you represent, or maybe you own, the extent to which you've really gone through those questions and identified for yourself, what the answers are. But I encourage you to do that. Or if you are in marketing for an organization, and you know that the organization has been through a process like this, it's so fundamental that I would encourage you to sort of dust off any of that work, and think about how you bring it forward, or does any of it need to be refreshed or revised? Because a lot of these questions are strategic in nature, but they're very intertwined with marketing. So if you haven't gone through this exercise, I would encourage you to, and if you have, and the answers to those questions are maybe sitting on a binder somewhere on a bookshelf, it's a good time to dust them off, because you'll find that ultimately this doesn't really have much to do with graphic design, but it does have quite a bit to do with the core of your organization, which is what we ultimately want to market. So back to the model, what we came here to talk about today is differentiation. And in this framework, I really refer to it as the courage to be different. And we'll talk a bit about that and what that word courage means and why it's incorporated there. But this is a very specific element of standing out, of a successful, thriving sales and marketing organization. And I want to sort of unpack some examples for you. The promise I made in this abstract was, how do you differentiate your own firm? So I'm going to show you some examples that'll hopefully inform you and inspire you from other industries. And then also I want to share some within your industry, but also give you some practical steps that you might take to have this materialize in your organization. So a really clear example I like to start with, this is the website from Whole Foods, okay? And if you shop at Whole Foods versus Publix, or vice versa, or maybe you're a Sprout shopper or a Trader Joe's shopper, one of the things that Whole Foods has done to be different, there are a number of things that they've done, but they have developed an ingredients list that if one of these ingredients is in a product that's being sold by a manufacturer, they will not sell it, okay? So you can't go, for example, to Whole Foods and get a Coca-Cola because it has high fructose corn syrup. So they have put a stake in the ground, clearly just based upon ingredients. This is one way that they develop their differentiation. We will not serve a product that has this list of ingredients on it. So what you find is you're putting a line in the sand to say this is one way that we're different. It's not for everybody, but it's for them. And what they find is that they attract a specific market segment because of how they've drawn this line in the sand. And so somebody who really likes Coca-Cola might not be a Whole Foods shopper, but this is how they begin to establish values. You can imagine that the values associated with making a strategic choice like this have to do with health, or have to do with some health choice that they've made. This is one example. So I want to lead into something that's very closely related. And so I don't know if you're a Chobani yogurt fan, but I happen to love Chobani yogurt. And if you go through the supermarket today, you can see Chobani yogurt, you can see Chobani oat milk, Chobani everything in the refrigerator. And you kind of think, well, that must have just always been there. But really, Chobani came out of nowhere. Chobani was really the first, one of the first entrants of the Greek yogurt category, okay, which really wasn't a thing in the US, probably 8 or 10 years ago. And the founder of Chobani literally started this out of the back of his car, and he would go to health food stores and attempt to sell one-on-one to small health food stores his Greek yogurt. And he was told that, Americans aren't going to like Greek yogurt because it's not sweet enough. Americans aren't going to eat that, and stores aren't going to carry it. But you can imagine, fast forward to today, it's a very, very successful brand, and you can go see a company like Yoplait. Yoplait has its own entrant into the Greek yogurt category. Okay, so how did that all happen? A lot of things happened, but when I had the opportunity to interact with the CMO of Chobani, I asked him, what was the thing? What made it work? He said, ultimately, we offered something different at the time. I made a strategic choice, and you go back to that ingredients list. We didn't have stuff in our yogurt that we wouldn't want to put in our body. And that was something that resonated with a particular category of people. Chobani was different and pioneering at a time when the consumer was ready for better choices. So back to courage, was told that, this is not going to be well received by the marketplace, but there was a conviction that there was a category of people who wanted a different choice. And here's the founder, who's a very well-known individual. He's been very successful, and really just said, we believe people have great taste. They just need great options. He gave them an option. And ultimately, in a world driven by profits, potassium sorbate, and purple number 40, those are things that they like to share, are on their competitors' ingredients lists. We are driven to do something different. And so they love to talk about purple number 40 because you can go and get a standard package of yogurt, look at the ingredients, and is purple number 40 something that sounds like you want to put in your body? So let's talk about how, if those examples sort of represent differentiation in the marketplace, I want to talk about some practical things that will help you to be different. And if you're in an engineering firm and you think, well, or an architecture firm or a planning firm, you think, well, I don't have something on the supermarket shelves, that's still okay. We can figure out ways for you to be different. The models and the construct for a supermarket to be different are the same ones that can teach us some lessons in whatever organizations or industries that we're in. So the first element of this construct, really, and this is, again, diving into the chapter on differentiation in the book, is to pass the test. Well, what is the test that we need to pass in order to differentiate? So the difference that I like to put out there, or the test, is our difference could be independently verified by an objective third party. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you're let's say you're in landscape planning or land planning, you can't say, well, we're client service oriented and we are incessantly focused on quality of service that we deliver. Those things are all very good, but if you brought a third party in and said, tell me the difference between my firm and another, it's hard to verify that, or probably impossible to verify that. So the idea would be to think about the differences you could talk about with your company and another that are truly verifiable, they're objective. And if you brought a referee to say, tell me the difference between mine and another, they would verify that you are. So let me give you an example of how this is really done. This is one of our clients, a professional service that I happen to love, which is golf. And if you are not familiar, this is David Ledbetter, who is a leading golf instructor in the world, if not the foremost or foreknown instructor of the golf swing. He's pretty darn close, and so has 80 academies around the world. Is a global brand name and brand ambassador for a lot of large organizations. And when we worked with David to understand what makes him different, okay, we applied the same sort of methodology and really challenged him to say, how are you truly different? And here are some of the independently verifiable things that you could look at and say, David, between you and someone down the street who's teaching the golf swing, how are you different? So here are some of the things, and hopefully you can see this. Usage of biomechanical lab work. They actually do biomechanics in a lab with the golf swing. They incorporate empirical scientific principles. He is the industry founder, referred to casually as the godfather of that industry. It's something that is verifiable. He has an emphasis on teach the teachers. He's just not teaching guys like me how to swing the golf club. He's teaching instructors, and that is a clear difference that he has and others don't. He's research oriented, back to data. He's the author of more books than any other instructor and among industry top sellers. So he's written more books than anyone on the topic, more academy locations than any other instructor. So the list goes on and on, but these are all elements that if you looked at it and said, David Ledbetter Golf Academy has this and other organizations don't. So and not in construction and the construction industry, but certainly a professional service, a professional that is paid for expertise. So there's something interesting for you to begin thinking about there. What are those elements inside your firm that you might draw out? And this takes time. This took weeks of discussion. International teams were involved in this to really challenge. And I want to use that word challenge. You have to challenge yourself to really say, this is a difference or it's not. Okay. And we really say to use facts and not platitudes to do that. Okay. So rely on facts, not just simple platitudes like, oh, we're customer service oriented, or we are quality oriented. Okay. Okay, and we also talk about this concept of having courage, and I want to, as one marketer to others, to another, encourage you to have that courage, to be different, to bring out and draw out differences in your company, and that can get a little bit uncomfortable because you can. It can come across as braggadocious, or it can come across as, well, if we're different, what are people going to think of us? And and you're talking to a person who named his organization Findsome Winmore. That took some courage because that's not a name that tells you exactly what it does. But as uncomfortable as that decision was, it has given us a distinctive place in the market. And so having that courage is really behind those differences that people see, or the differences that you want to create. Another element that you can pursue to carve out differentiation, and you may already have this. This is something that you may have already chosen an industry niche. Okay, so by choosing a niche within your organization or within your industry, what you're really saying is, I want to focus on one particular industry, or I want to focus on one particular geographic area. We work with the Florida CFO group, who's a group of professionals, and they only work in the state of Florida. They understand Florida law, they understand the geography, the needs in Florida. So they've used geography to carve out their niche. Here's an example of an architecture firm that just specializes in gyms and wellness centers. So they could probably do an apartment complex. They could probably do an office building or interior design for a professional firm. But what they've really chosen is to focus just on gyms. So they might, for the apartment complex, be the architect that designs the gym. Or if you're a CrossFit facility and you want someone who just understands gyms, they're one to go to, or to at least consider. And when you do specialize in a niche, what you end up finding is that you develop an advantage over a generalist, because you tend to know how people work with fitness equipment. You tend to know how people walk through the gym and how they use it. You tend to know how people collide in a gym and how to plan it so that things like fitness circuit equipment can be arranged properly. Free weights can be separated from cardio, because that's all you do. And so when a generalist architect competes against an architect that specializes like this, they're really not in a position to compete fully, because they don't have that intellectual property that's been developed as a result of experience. So one way to think about this is this simple exercise, a positioning exercise, which I learned from a industry consultant. And you could just really, and with your team, say, we specialize in blank for blank. And the first blank is a service offering of some sort. And the second blank is a market segment. It could be a geography, or it could be a particular industry. So, one example might be, we specialize in landscape architecture for city governments. Okay. So you really choose your own adventure here. And what you might find, especially if your firm is established, is that you already have that, but you just don't talk about it. You might already have a specialty, but you don't talk about it. Or there are times when people are afraid to talk about that specialization because they feel like it will take them out of work that is not within that specialty. And the reality is, you can have a specialization without that being your entire practice. But it is one thing to hold up and say, we have a specialty in this particular area, and here's why. In our firm, for example, we have a number of specialties just based upon the work that we've done. We've done a lot of real estate work, and we've done a lot in the golf industry. And so we can use those in those client situations without saying that we're a golf marketing organization. So just an exercise you could go through individually or as a team. We talked about this one a bit, but another way to do this is to develop intellectual property. And what I mean by that is, if you work in an industry segment, you can do things like write position papers on, back to the gym architect example, on how gym users use equipment and use the floor space in a gym, or how they interact with the locker room as it relates to getting in and out quickly during a lunch break. The opportunities are sort of endless. So you can certainly write about things. You can perform experiments on things and publish those. You can also conduct surveys. There are lots of firms that conduct an annual survey on a particular topic, and they will use year-to-year data to show clients how trends are changing in a particular industry. So thinking about intellectual property is another way that you can develop and carve out your differentiation. And again, sort of like your positioning, you can use things that you already have, but maybe you're just not talking about as much anymore. And so especially when we work with law firms, a lot of times they have lots of intellectual property or things they've done, but they're sitting on bookshelves as opposed to being used in marketing presentations. One that I want to dive into a bit is the idea of creating a methodology. And a methodology is simply a model that says, this is how we do things, it works. And we find that clients are attracted to models that show that the process of something. So if you've built a great building and you're pitching a new customer on it, on your services, the fact that you could say, hey, this is the result we got to through this methodology, if that gives them comfort, and it gives them an attraction to your organization because you have a methodology to show. So I want to show one from our friends at Dick's Height, which they talk about, which is really the 6D process of dream, discover, design, discuss, document, and deliver. It's a model that they use to say, this is how we're different, this is how we do things, and talking about engagement and involvement along the way. It's likely that you have something like this, but codifying it, articulating it, developing a clever way to talk about it is an interesting way that during a presentation you can say, here's our process, it works, we've been using it for X number of years, and we want to use it for you. I want to share some of the work we've done for Baker Barrios, who is an architecture firm here in town that we have done quite a bit of work with, and they're actually the architect of our building. And we help them to flush out their methodology. And their methodology ultimately is something they wanted to have to talk to clients about, but also to attract a workforce. And attracting a workforce is very important to them as they grow and think about the next generation of their company. The concept of making tomorrow a better place, okay? And I know you talk about placemaking quite a bit. They're sort of mixing the physical with the conceptual of making tomorrow a better place. And this is the kind of organization that wants to shape not just the buildings, but also the people that work in the organization. So we came up with the 3 Ps concept for them as we heard them talk. And this is a bit theoretical, but we talked about presence, purpose, and persona, how something looks, how it functions, and how it feels. And as we flushed out this 3Ps model for them, it's clear that Baker Barrios in the middle as an organization, which is symbolized by their logo, impacts outwardly, the physical, the intentional, and the psychological. Okay, they impact the buildings that they work on, and in turn, as they think about the people that work in their organization, they want to shape in that organization. They're believers that that work ultimately shapes them in return. That the work, the method, and the culture are all impacted as a result. And so as you work with those 3Ps, you're having an outward expression, but you're also feeling an outward or an inward impact. And that ultimately gives them a way, an interesting way for them to talk about themselves and to galvanize around a mantra of making tomorrow a better place. And which is something that I think all of us want to be a part of, whatever organization we work with, but it's something that they're able to blend together, and they're really proud of that. One other example, I don't know if you're familiar with IDEO, which is the Human Factors, an industrial design company. So IDEO is a famous planning and design firm, and they do everything from help school systems to rethink themselves to they were one of the key industrial designers of the iPhone. If you're familiar with Nemours Children's Hospital here in Lake Nona, which is one of the leading and the newest children's hospitals in the world, they help to design that as well. So that lots of interesting work that they do, they bring to the table. And they have a methodology, as you can imagine. And the methodology that they use is so tried and true that they actually sell certifications to their methodology. So you can go online as a professional and take their certifications based upon their methodology. So their methodology, how they work, can be a very simple thing, but you could also take it to the next level, and that is, I actually want to sell a certification of this. So I have to share this because I thought it was really timely to our organization, or to our concept, our talk today. When I had been to their website and then I later went to Facebook, the ad that they showed me on Facebook, they obviously knew I had gone to look at that site. They're actually using a fact, not a platitude, to distinguish their organization. Or their offering, which is 84% of alumni say they are more capable of producing innovative solutions after taking an IDEO course. So again, this is how we use a fact, research, data to differentiate. You can't just say, it's a great course, you should try it, you'll feel better about yourself. You could say that, but it's not going to have the impact that something like this will have. And then the last element to this as we wrap up and go to Q&A is the idea of being remarkable. And I know this is a word that it's thrown around quite a bit, but what is it in your organization that you can do to either draw out what's remarkable about you or to create something that's remarkable? And by being remarkable, and if you want to explore this topic, Seth Godin has a book out called Purple Cow, which talks about remarkable things and how things become remarkable. And just think about that word, that which is worthy of a remark. What is it that inside your organization or a brand that you interact with is remarkable? And so just a couple of examples. I don't know, this is Cadence, which is a restaurant here in Orlando, which a lot of people talk about. There's no sign on the building. There's one or two seatings a night of I think 6 or 8 people, and that's it. And it's a very, very unique experience. They don't really advertise. They don't even put a sign on the building. And it's really confusing as to what the actual name of it is because they don't talk about it a lot. But people talk about it because it's different. They have had the courage to go do something different, something unique, and something profound. Another one, and this is one I get a kick out of, is the $120 Philadelphia cheesesteak that some steakhouse in Philadelphia had the courage to create. And this is Wagyu beef. There are truffles in there. There's the very rare aged cheese. The bread is is cooked to order, and they took a very elaborate spin on the cheesesteak. So for $120, you too can try a Wagyu cheesesteak. So again, these are things that are different, that are out there, but worthy of remarks. That which is worthy of remark, the remarkable. So so with that, I encourage you to think about what's inside your organization that's worth talking about, or having the courage to create something inside the company that's remarkable. So with that, I am going to turn this back over to Danielle, and I want to say thank you for the opportunity to share, and I want to open it up to Q&A.
Of course. Thank you, Matt. Let me get back to our spreadsheet. So it looks like we do have a few questions. Despite there not being a quote silver bullet, do you recommend a place to start or a way to evaluate where to start for a firm that is identifying and exploiting their differentiators?
Well, I think this is where you delineate between identifying and creating. You can look to your company to look at the things that are unique about it, and your silver bullet becomes how you put those things together. Your silver bullet becomes a collection of the small things that you do that comprise who you are, that make up who you are. So I recommend, and this takes time, but really thinking about that model and that framework, and thinking about the small things that are different, that when you put them together add up to something that's meaningful. And I also encourage you to write these things down over time. When I'm going through a process like this with a client, I'll have a notebook in my back pocket or a note on my phone, and they don't tend to come up when you're just sitting down to do this. They tend to come up over time, over several weeks or even months. So I would be patient. I would also ask, a lot of times ask customers what they think. Why are you different? Why did you choose us? Or why did you not choose us? And that oftentimes will identify some of those things for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Hey, Matt, when you get a chance, could you make me the host again, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, I have a question while you're doing that.
Go ahead.
Matt, when you were talking about the passing the test, how do you suggest, or actually this is a question for anybody on the call, because I'm sure a lot of your firms out there have done this, but we have not. How would you suggest getting that objective third-party verification? Would you suggest doing client interviews, or I don't really think those would be objective third parties though. So what do you suggest?
Well, I think if you're honest with yourself, you can serve as that objective third party by I guess putting yourself through the test, which is this truly something that holds water? And then we use that word challenge, and a lot of times that's what we serve as an objective third party, or an agency, if you work with an agency or a consultant, to help you do that, because it sometimes is hard because you're not fully objective. You can go to a very large degree and do third party surveys. That's one other avenue you could go. But I just like to, and it usually happens with metrics or a fact. David Ledbetter, for example, he really started the industry, and so you can point to that and say that's pretty close to a fact. There are others, but none that have the acclaim that he's had. But I would invite others to, if you have ideas on that too, to.
And our next question, how often should a company review or reevaluate their differentiators?
Well, I think it can be an ongoing process, honestly, at least annually. And sometimes you create a differentiator by some of the work that you've done. So if you end up doing a piece of work that hasn't been done before, is new to you, you can keep a running list of those things, and really should be an ongoing basis that you do. But a lot of them you'll find, back to David Ledbetter, a lot of them are sort of foundational, that are core, that will sort of stand the test of time. But I would always be open to adding others to it. But you also have, probably part of that test is what is truly meaningful. What's meaningful to a client. And some things don't matter to clients. So you have to really put yourself, does this differentiator actually, do people care about it? And I think as marketers, we tend to think that everyone cares about what we want to talk about, but really being client-centric or customer-centric involves thinking of them and what they truly care about.
Mm-hmm. All right. It sounds like we definitely want to try to be engaging with our clients and getting their feedback on that. Are there any other questions? That's all that I have in the chat. If you'd like to speak up and ask your own question, please feel free. And as Daniel just posted, don't forget to send in a photo, from your perspective watching this presentation, and a note about your favorite part of the program for a chance to win a copy of Matt's book. And Daniel's email address is in the chat. All right. Well, if you think of any other questions, please interrupt me, but I'd like to go ahead and thank Matt so much for sharing his time with us today. And we would like to make a donation to your charity of choice as a thank you. So please send us that after the presentation, and we'll make that happen.
Excellent. Very kind of you all to have me, and I really enjoyed talking about this topic. So thank you so much for spending the time with me.
Of course. And then just since we have a few minutes left, I wanted to remind our members and guests about some of our upcoming events. So we do have a member survey that we have sent out that we're requesting be completed by the 25th. So you've got 2 more days to complete that. We're going to have a coffee talk on the 8th. Our next marketing mechanics event will be on October 28th with Dana Lancourt, and she joined us last November to talk about culture, and she's coming back this October to talk to us about culture during COVID. So we're pretty interested in that. We'll have some other coffee talks scheduled throughout the end of the year, and we are planning to do a book review / discussion of Matt's book. So please make sure to submit your photos and favorite moments from today's presentation so you can be entered to win a free copy of his book. All right. Well, Daniel, Anna, Whitney, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we end this?
Just thank you to Matt. That was great. I took a lot of notes.
Yep, thanks for joining us, Matt. I appreciate it, and looking forward to talk about your book in November. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a really good, unique perspective for us.
Great. I'm looking forward to it as well.